Halfway through my weight loss journey, 25 pounds gone. What did I use to achieve my results? Hello everybody, and welcome to the Honor and Knowledge channel out here in our tiki hut in South Florida. So the purpose of this video is to focus on my weight loss journey, the hungry strike for America. So the first thing is I decided I'd lose 50 pounds. Why? Because there are 50 states. Turns out that was brilliant by accident, because if you look at the National Institute of Health BMI chart that shows a healthy weight range, they call it the optimum weight, as well as overweight, and then class 1 obesity and so forth. When I started this journey back in beginning of July of 2025, I was in the class 1 obesity. 25 pounds later, I'm in the overweight category. And after I finish losing 50 pounds, I'll be inside of the optimum weight range. Not by very far, but I will be there. So I will provide the words of wisdom that I use and some of the data that I use to help me stay on my path of losing 50 pounds. The first item is this piece of metal that has a really neat saying on it. I've used it a lot. What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? Doesn't say what would you attempt to do if you knew you would not fail. It's what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail, meaning guaranteed success. And you know what? I've used that for a long time, for many decades now, and it's really helped me out. And in this one, it had a big part of it. I pray a lot too. Why? Because I need help to stay on my path. I gained all my weight by myself, but I believe I need help to lose it, and I get that help. Another thing I use is Dr. Fuhrman's book, Eat to Live. It's the one book I use. I've also used things like Blue Zone and that kind of stuff, but it all just supports what Dr. Fuhrman has written. And he has lots of scientific information in there that he uses to back up his statements. I will admit that his is stay away from meat for the most part, and I do like the carnivore diet. It was delicious, and I did lose like 20 pounds from this time. Remember this picture? I was just under, as Tyra says, a couple biscuits short of 260 pounds. Well, the first time I lost 25 pounds from there was I used Dr. Fuhrman's diet. I really followed it. After I lost that 25 pounds on Dr. Fuhrman's diet, it leveled off for me. So I went on the carnivore diet. I ate lots of meat, lots of eggs. It was wonderful. My cholesterol did go up. I know based upon my research that a lot of people who support the carnivore diet say it doesn't hurt your cholesterol. Well, mine did get negatively impacted by it. Not by a huge amount, but for me it was enough of an increase for me to say, I think I need to get off the carnivore diet. So anyway, I lost about 20 pounds on the carnivore diet. Now you would think 25 and 20 would equal 45 pounds lost, but not really, because that would put me down around 215. So along the way I gained another 10 pounds somehow. So that'd be 225. And then I lost another 15 pounds by being on a combination of the carnivore and Mediterranean diet. So I ate meat, fish, eggs, and salads. And I got down to 210. Then I hurt my back in the beginning of 2024. Actually, I think I hurt my back for years before because I found that I had like 5 different things wrong with my lower back. So along with one bum shoulder and a bum knee and a bum ankle, I had a bum back. But it took me several months to recover from that. And during the recovery, I did eat. So I got up to 235 pounds because I just wasn't doing anything. The pain was excruciating, as some of you may already realize, unfortunately. So I went through lots of doctor visits and lots of therapy. In fact, when I was first laying down on the ground on my back to start doing some things, I had 5 layers of cushion so that I could even handle the pain in my lower back. I did take pain pills, but I slowly got off of them. And you know what? I don't like having pain pills. It affects your liver and it affects all kinds of other things. So I slowly weaned myself off the pain pills as I did more therapy, and I tried to lose weight. I got down to 229 pounds in the beginning of July of last year, and that's when I started the Hungry Strike for America to lose 50 more pounds. So let's talk about how I motivated myself to do this. Well, remember when you were in kindergarten, the teacher gave you a star? So I came up with the official Hungry Strike for America sign, and I give myself a star for every pound that I lose. I think that's pretty good. So moving on. How much exercise do I do? How much therapy do I do? First of all, I slowly developed an exercise routine in my garage. I like doing things at home. Now I spend about 12 hours a week, 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, doing exercise in my garage. Not to build big muscles, but to ensure that every muscle has some attention spent on it. Shoulders, back, legs, chest, everything. That's 12 hours a week. That's a lot of exercise. I use the elliptical because I can't use our treadmill. That was my big expense for this whole journey, an elliptical. I once used the treadmill again about 3-4 months ago just for 5 minutes, and my knee hurt for 3 days. And speaking of my knee, the one injection that I do get has nothing to do with weight loss directly. It's for my knee. I get a hyaluronic gel injection into my knee each week for 3 weeks, every 6 months. That has allowed me to do all the exercise I need to do. I still can't do walking too much, but I can do the elliptical. No pounding because of the elliptical, and I do the rowing machine. Now, because of my back, I don't bend backwards on the rowing machine. Here are some other words of wisdom. One is, don't rationalize. Don't say, for example, today you're going to eat a lot because you're with friends. You can be with friends and not eat a lot. You can be with family and not eat a lot. Don't rationalize. I used to call, when I was consulting, rationalize is a 4-letter word. You don't rationalize things. You just be honest with yourself. You know, the old saying, be true to yourself. It was William Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. Be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Also, be gentle with yourself. Be gentle to others. Now, what does being gentle to yourself mean? It means have very easy goals for losing weight. That's why I pick 1 pound a week. And I don't mind not losing a pound every now and then. That's why the period of time was a lot more than 50 weeks. I don't get mad at myself if I don't meet my goal. I just make sure I know why I didn't meet the goal and try to meet it the next time. If you want to try half a pound a week or 1 pound a month, I think that'd be great. The trend is important. So being gentle with yourself means don't be too harsh when you're coming up with goals. Now, being gentle with exercises is that, well, heck, I don't add very much weight at a time. I add the smallest amount that I can. For example, when I started doing all my therapy, exercises and stretches in order to recover from my different body parts being ailing, one of the therapies was to raise your arms up like this, and you're supposed to have had weights in your hands, like a water bottle or even a really real weight. I could barely lift my arms and I had nothing in my hands. Now I lift 8 pounds. I raise up my arms, I count to 3, and that's 1. And I do that between 10 and 20 times, 3 times, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. How did I achieve that? By starting with nothing in my hands. Nothing in my hands. And then when I felt like it, I put a water bottle that was half filled. Why? Because a full water bottle was too much. And I go up to 20 reps, and then when I add a little bit of weight, I go back down to 10. You know what? Doing 10 at a slightly heavier weight is a lot easier than doing 20 at the slightly lower weight. So it's a reward. I reward myself by making it easier, but add a little bit of weight. And I do the same thing with things in the garage when I do my 3 times 4 hours of exercise every week. I have 1.25 pound weights that I can add, and sometimes I even have something that's 3/4 pound, a piece of metal with a big hole in it, 3/4 pound, and I use that for some of my exercises. I don't want to re-hurt anything, but I keep wanting to move forward. So on the bench press, for example, I only add 2.5 pounds and I'll go back down to 10. And if it's easy for me, which it isn't, but if it was, then maybe I would go back up to 12 or 13 reps and start there. So how do I do my reps? Well, each of my exercises has 3 sets. So I start at 10, 3 times 10, but on Mondays, instead of being 10, 10, 10, I go 10, 10, and 11. On Wednesdays, I do 10, 11, and 11. And on Fridays, I'm 11, 11, and 11. My body seems to handle that. If yours can't, then maybe you go every other time you exercise, you increase by 1. I'm not a medical person, I'm not a therapist, but this is what's working for me. Now, when I get up to 19, on a Wednesday, I do 19, 20, and 20. Then on Friday, I add a weight. to the whatever the thing is I'm doing, I add a weight. Sometimes you have to add two, like on a bench press, you add one on each end. But I add a weight and then I go back down to 10. So that Friday, I've added a little bit of weight and I go back down to 10, 10, and 10. And then the following Monday, I do the same thing, 10, 10, and 11, and so on. That way, I've really increased a lot of weight over, 7 months now? I feel very good about it. My wife thinks I look a lot better. And you know what? Here's another number for you. How many calories does your body use up each day, even if you don't exercise, for every 1 pound of muscle that you gain? The answer is 50. For every pound of muscle, your body automatically uses up 50 calories a day. I've lost 25 pounds, but I really think I've lost 30 pounds of fat and gained 5 pounds of muscle. So that means 250 calories a day extra I'm burning up today compared to 7 months ago. That's freebie. That's a freebie. That's like getting a BOGO when you go out and buy something that you need and you get one for free. You know, I've always said that losing weight sort of feeds on itself, pun intended. The more you exercise and the more you diet, the easier it gets, the more fun it is. The longer you're on that track, that routine becomes a routine. Now I know I'm retired, and I know very well what it's like if you have to travel a lot or if you're struggling because of family issues or money or whatever. And I am a stress eater. Once you learn that, then that's when you use your brain to figure out not to do that. I know it's hard. Pretty good. Each pound of muscle, 50 calories, 5 pounds, 250 calories every day. So I'm shooting to gain another 5 pounds of muscle after I lose another 25 pounds, actually 30 pounds of fat. Speaking of fat, how much fat am I carrying right now? Part of your weight loss journey, you help yourself by studying, believe it or not, fat. I've learned, and I never do this before I started this last year, there's visceral fat and there's subcutaneous fat. But the point is, when you learn about fat and what it does to your body and where it's located on your body, not the typical body, but your body, you learn a lot about yourself, which actually helps you with your weight loss journey. It helps me with mine, at least. So I did the Navy fat test. Yeah, I'm retired Navy. Yep. And I used to get this a lot, but I didn't realize until now that it is the primo way of determining what your fat content is of your body. 3 or 4 days ago, measured my neck, measured my waist. Not being a woman, I didn't have to measure my hips. The calculation said 65 pounds of fat still. So weighing 204, let's call it 205, makes it easy math. 205 minus 65 pounds, that's 140 is what my weight would be without any fat whatsoever. 140. I know that athletes, Olympic class athletes, have at least 10% fat, if not 15%. So I figured if I shoot for 20% fat, that's not a bad goal. That's not that far away from my first goal of 179 pounds. And if I get to 174, why 174? Well, because I graduated from the Naval Academy in 1974. For Academy grads, a year group is a big deal. And for my class of 74, I want to get to 174. So that'd be 55 pounds. That would be about right for the amount of fat I would need to have to be healthy. Why do you need some fat to be healthy? Well, the main reason I can think of is your fat is used up sometimes if you get sick. So you need to keep some fat. And you burn it up when you're working out and that type of thing. Not a medical professional, like I said, but I think 174 would be a great goal for me to get to, a healthy weight. Now, what's some other pieces of advice? Yes, on being gentle. Be gentle to others. What I mean by that is, one of the things that could negatively affect your weight loss journey, because I've experienced this myself in the past, is when you attempt to control other people's eating habits or schedules based upon your own weight loss journey. I will tell you that I've learned that the right thing to do is to figure out how to work your weight loss journey, because it is work, along with minimizing any impact that you would have on other people, your family and your friends. Spend time with your family and friends, eat with them, do all that stuff. Just be conscious, be aware of what you need to do to ensure that you can stay on your weight loss journey. Remember my Christmas and New Year's failure? Well, it wasn't a failure from the perspective of making memories and having fun. 13.5 pounds was an awful lot to gain, though. I will use that information next Christmas and New Year's. Looking at my notes, oh yeah, as far as being honest with yourself with regard to your weight, I think I look pretty good straight on when I look in the mirror. When I turn sideways, though, that's an honest portrayal of what I have to do to fix my body. You can't fake the side view. So I'd recommend doing that with caution, but look at yourself sideways to see what you really need to do to become healthy. I do that. With regard to rewards, to reward yourself for good behavior, for example, reward yourself for losing a pound, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever. Don't reward yourself with food. Now I'm going to tell you about one exception to that I'm going to do for myself, but I never reward myself with food. I put a star on the official Hungry Strike for America sign. I fill in another state on the official United States of America Hungry Strike map. That was one of the big things I've learned, is don't reward yourself with food. Don't reward yourself by going out to dinner. Don't reward yourself with anything at all that involves calories. Maybe you go for a walk. I don't, but just an example of what you might use. So how else do I reward myself? Well, I do make these videos, don't I? That helps an awful lot. And I see it in my wife's eyes and my wife's words. Very complimentary. In fact, I had to go find a large shirt today because the extra large shirts all getting too big to me and they don't look good at all. Pretty soon I'll be able to go out shopping for a whole new wardrobe. I've asked my wife not to buy anything for me so that we can go out together and I can actually have a lot of fun in buying the new clothes. Now there's a big reward. Now here's the one exception. In my research about food, I've learned that American wheat products are not good for you. The gluten molecules, and I'm not a nutritionist. Let me just say, I just know that the wheat that's used in American foods, well, it's bad for me. I'm not gluten intolerant, but I will tell you the few times I do eat bread, I feel it. And so the only thing I can think of is it's gluten. So I did some research and I came up with this thing called ancient grains. So I bought some ancient wheat flour and I'm going to make bread with it after I get below 200 pounds. And the main reason I want to make that bread, besides having it to see how good it tastes and if I have the same negative reaction to it, is that a few weeks ago I bought cod liver from Iceland. It's called the foie gras of the sea. It's supposed to be very healthy for you. Researched it, looks wonderful to me, but I needed something to spread it on. And I decided I would reward myself below 200 pounds with baking bread with ancient wheat and putting the foie gras of the sea on it. Now I have what I call a stand-up body, because when I sit down I get my belly rolls out there. My belly rolls, I have the upper and lower one. I know the medical people have Latin terms for those, but I just call them my upper belly roll and my lower belly roll. But I calculated out weight, the fat in those two belly rolls is, and it's 10 pounds. When I sit down, you know what? Those belly rolls come out and they don't look great and I can feel them there. Having said that, I can't just lose 10 pounds and lose the belly rolls. I need to lose fat from all over the body in order to lose that. So I have a stand-up body, not a sit-down body. I'm looking forward to having a sit-down body. And that's all part of another thing is what's your motivation to lose weight? What is your motivation to diet and exercise? Yes, you become healthier. Yes, you look better. But there's got to be, I think, at least for me there is, additional motivation. Besides the Hungry Strike for America and my magical, mythical journey to help Speaker Johnson maintain a majority in the House for the good of the United States and the world, I also have motivation with regard to getting rid of my medicine. I have motivation to live longer for my grandkids, be able to do hikes someday, to use the treadmill. You need to come up with your own. I think that's important. Now, for those of you that are contemplating GLP-1 injections or pills or nasal sprays or whatever they're coming up with, every single one of those things requires you to do, at least they say that you need to do diet and exercise. But if you don't do diet and exercise before you start with GLP-1s, how are you going to do diet and exercise after you start GLP-1? Now you might rationalize it and say, oh, once I lose weight, it'll be easier for me to exercise and diet. Well, guess what? If you don't have the willpower to do diet and exercise now, then you're not going to have the willpower probably to do the diet and exercise after you get the GLP-1s. I would suggest and recommend that you figure out what the actual GLP-1 injection diet and exercise program is and put yourself on that now. And if you can do it now, you'll probably start losing weight without taking the injections. And think of all the money you'll save and the pride you'll feel and the wonder you'll have with regards to your body. You know, you do research on fat, like I said, and how does the body process energy. You learn all that stuff. It's readily available now. And you know what? It helps you on your path. So the last 3 things for sleep, just want to say how important that is, cannot be overemphasized. Very important. When you sleep, your body uses up fat. It rebuilds muscle, so you need some protein after you exercise. I was always interested in where does the fat go? Well, it turns out about 16% of it gets turned into water, and the rest of it is turned into CO2. So while you're breathing, while you're sleeping, you're getting rid of CO2 and some moisture in your breath, and some of it obviously goes out with your urine. As you're sleeping and breathing, you're actually reducing your weight. That's pretty good to me. So your fat is going away if you diet and exercise properly. It goes away in your sleep. With regard to intermittent fasting, something I actually learned on a submarine a long time ago. I had like 2 to 4 hours of sleep, so because of being sleep deprived, I'd rather eat just 1 meal a day and get a little bit more sleep, and that's what I did. So I learned to eat 1 meal a day, happened to be dinner. As I got older, that's just something that I naturally kept. I rarely eat breakfast, rarely eat lunch, mostly eat dinners. That's the way I do my intermittent fasting. But the other part of it is you can't just start eating like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and then eat until midnight. You need to try to keep a window of, well, however short it is, I try to keep that. I'm just mindful of the fact that the longer my window is, the less effective my diet is. The less effective my sacrifice of not eating calories is if you spread it out too much. Lastly, the new food pyramid. Exceptionally good compared to the old food pyramids. Now, the one thing when you're on a diet like I am, I don't eat potatoes. I don't eat, like I said, any of the wheat products right now. You know what? Carbohydrates, not good. Carbohydrates are just like eating sugar in my book. And speaking of that, you know, sugar, I almost never have it. But because of being gentle on other people, if there's a birthday cake for somebody, you take a slice, you don't really have to eat the whole slice, okay? Even if you tell them to cut you a thin slice, don't rationalize a thin slice being, well, it could have been a thicker slice, so you'll get a thin slice. Nope, you need to keep your brain going on the fact that sugar, cancer causing, bad for your body. Having said that, let me just take a quick look at my notes. Everything looks good. So you know what? Thank you for watching this video. It helps me on my Hungry Strike for America weight loss journey. Hope some of this information was useful to you. I appreciate your time very much. God bless you. God bless President Trump and the United States of America. See you in a couple days with my next political video in this series. And if you have any questions about my weight loss journey that might help you, go ahead and ask in the comment section. Thank you for watching the Honor and Knowledge channel.